the TAV should get sabotaged. It's not an oversimplification to say that for uttering that single sentence, one of the best known writers in Europe today may go to prison for up to 5 years. Erri De Luca expressed his opinion in support of a resistance movement, the No TAV movement. TAV simply means high-speed train, that would like to stop the construction of a train from Lyon to Turin. De Luca's supported this group for many years now, and in response to a question in an interview on the Huffington Post, he uttered that single sentence. He talks about it as if his words have been put in handcuffs. He also says that since he doesn't have the power to free them, all he can do is repeat them. So, today, in support of Erri and in support of free speech, in support of the right of writers to say what they think, I'm going to read a few pages from a book that Erri's just published. It's called La Parola Contraria. Now, when Feltrinelli put out the English translation, they gave it the title, A Dissenting Word. And that makes sense. Parola does mean word. But like parole in French, parola also means speech. And here, it's an important distinction because we're not just talking about the remarkable, personal, unforgettable voice of a great writer, Erri De Luca, but we're talking about a category of speech, what he calls contrarian speech, that is worth defending. As a reader, I haven't had any real preference for literature, particularly attentive to social and political themes. The erudite labyrinths of Borges opened wide my third eye, suspending me over the depths of myths and sagas. I read the Kolimar tales of Shalamov in the same way, learning infinite patience and resistance from a prisoner in a forced labor camp. Literature is a goal that doesn't respect either genres or themes. It comes into the world, and when it does, it's a feast for whoever reads. As a boy, I turned anarchist after reading George Orwell's Homage to Catalonia. I chose my side at an age that contains all possibilities, and the sentiments of that allegiance haven't changed. When you stumble onto a lucky encounter between your life and a book, literature works at the level of nerve fibers. Such appointments can't be booked in advance, nor can you recommend them to others. Every reader is entitled to be astonished at the sudden shuffle between the days of his life and the pages of a book. In recalling who I was at that age, I'm trying to imagine what might move a youth today to throw himself into a struggle that has been slandered and suppressed on a massive scale, like that of the Susa Valley. A young person from elsewhere in Italy would have to risk name, reputation, and a criminal record in order to take the side of the No TAV movement in the Susa Valley. Perhaps such a person doesn't need an Orwell telling epic stories of popular struggle. For such a person to join in, just knowing there are people with the civil and popular will to resist is enough. But if, on the reading list, there does happen to be a present-day Orwell priming the fuse, I would like it to be me. Exactly that. I would like to be that writer, met by chance, someone whose pages got mixed up with the nascent feelings about social justice that form a young citizen. In this way, I introduce as best I can the accusation that has been made against me: instigation. To instigate a sense of justice, one that already exists but hasn't yet found words to express and therefore recognize it, and that makes you suddenly stand up, leaving the book behind because the blood rushes to your face, your eyes sting, and it's no longer possible to keep reading. Going to the window, opening it, looking outside without seeing a thing because everything is happening within. Breathing deeply to feel, along with the oxygen, the circulation of a new form of will. Beginning an apprenticeship to a new form of justice, one formed from below, one that clashes with that other justice, seated at the bench in a courtroom, to instigate, as happened to me with Orwell's homage to Catalonia. Compared with the instigation I aspire to, what I'm charged with is nothing. For any instigation to violence to occur, a direct connection needs to be demonstrated between words and the actions committed. In a statement printed in Left, in a supplement to the Italian newspaper L'Unità, the professor of constitutional law Gaetano Arezziti affirms, quote, Article 21 of the Italian Constitution permits the highest level of freedom in expressing our opinions. For this reason, the public prosecutors in a case like De Luca's will have to demonstrate a direct connection between the words and the action. If it's not possible to demonstrate an immediate succession of events between the words and the actions, then there is no crime, end quote. And so the following sort of logic has been declared. After my statements, some particular events occurred. And what happened before my statements? This comparison is lacking. After the invention of Kleenex, people blew their noses, and before? This argument is identical to others that have been ridiculed for at least a millennium and captured by the Latin phrase post hoc ergo propter hoc. After this, and therefore caused by this. Where I come from, the word is given another sort of responsibility. Someone wishes the worst for someone else, and later that person is the victim of an accident. The guy imagining the ill is held to be responsible for what happened, and so he gets the reputation of being a jinx. When soccer fans in a northern Italian stadium egg on nature by chanting, "Let's go, Vesuvio," they're instigating a volcano to erupt. The reactions of fans from the south, however, took the form of a gesture traditionally thought to defend against hexes, scratching one's anatomy in a particular place. No indictment was issued. And so, would it were that the TAV line in the Susa Valley could be sabotaged, that it wouldn't come out to anything or lead anywhere, that the public funding destined to line the pockets of businesses in bed with political parties could end, that a government functioning with a normal capacity for understanding and action leave this project incomplete, as they've already done with 395 other major construction projects in Italy, that the TAV line could be declared an environmental disaster with those responsible prosecuted for causing it. The TAV should be sabotaged, a phrase that comes under the category of jinxes. In 1953, Henri-Georges Clouzot directed a film in black and white, The Wages of Fear. In Italy, its title was Vite Vendute, Lives for Sale. 4 desperate men agreed to drive 2 trucks full of nitroglycerin on a long and winding trail, accepting deadly risk in exchange for a big payoff. Both the Italian and the original title fit the bill. Whenever I see workers forced to labor in conditions lethal to their health and safety, I think of that film. Every day, whether tunneling deep in mines or on scaffolding built over thin air, they confront such risks in the stubborn hope of making it through the day. Occasionally, I found myself in similar straits. Once, I even wrote about it. The Susa Valley has begun to receive daily doses of asbestos powder, belched out from a sample excavation. The first people to get this in concentrated form are the workers on site, as well as the uniformed brigades in charge of its defense. It's not surprising that the Minister of the Interior ignores the dangerous health conditions of his subordinates. The police unions, on the other hand, are justifiably worried about it, though the only remedy they've been given for the contamination is watering the streets surrounding the worksite. Perhaps some inane authority has convinced them that asbestos is water soluble. Instead, the infernal truth is that there's no safe level of exposure to asbestos, no minimum threshold that's harmless. Knowingly and in willful neglect. With this pronouncement, the directors of ILFA in Taranto were sentenced for having dispersed asbestos among the workers and citizens in neighboring areas. It would be better to stop it in time. Misfortunes prefer to travel in pairs, and so it is that the mountains they plan to perforate also contain deposits of pitchblende. This radioactive material is more concentrated than the depleted uranium used by the military, the cause of tumors in our soldiers deployed in the Balkans. Whether these men know it or not, they're playing a bad remake of Clouseau's movie. They're following the wages of fear, and they're doing it for only modest pay. In contrast to labor with other sorts of risks, where at least one can hope to get through safely, whoever absorbs asbestos dust has no chance of escaping or of a cure. Closing that tunnel will prolong lives that risk ruin just to earn their pay. So, here I am, on trial. If convicted, the sentence can vary between 1 and 5 years. Even in the case of the worst, I won't call myself a victim. I didn't just happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. It's not as if a tile fell on my head as I was walking by. Just the opposite. I'm a witness and a defendant pressing charges for damages to my constitutional freedom guaranteed by Article 21. Quote, everyone has a right to profess freely their own thoughts in words, in writing, and in every other means of circulation, end quote. I expressed my opinion, and they want to convict me for this. For now, the real victim is Article 21 of the Italian Constitution. I am, and I will remain, even if convicted, a witness to sabotage, namely, to the hampering, to the obstructing, and the impeding of the freedom to dissent. Io sto con Erri.